Our two organizations 6 years ago embarked on a journey to really fill a need around mentorship. And we recognized, and I'm sure many of you have, that when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to starting companies, the ideas certainly important. The capital, absolutely. But the most important thing is the qualified team, and in this particular instance, the founder CEO to lead it. It makes the difference, truly, between success and failure. And one of the time honored traditions of ensuring that the wisdom is transferred from one generation of entrepreneurs to the next is mentorship. And it happens, I'm sure, in and around all of your lives, typically on an ad hoc basis. But we had set out both individually and then collectively to identify something, a program that was truly sustainable and scalable. And it brought us both to a program up at MIT where they've been perfecting team-based mentorship for more than 2 decades. So much so that they were asked by a foundation that focuses on entrepreneurship, the Kauffman Foundation, to train other organizations to adopt their methodology. And they've now trained over 100 organizations around the globe to adopt the MIT way. It's a team-based model, and it pairs a less experienced entrepreneur with a team of anywhere from 2 to 5 experienced, successful CEO founders. Again, we embarked on this journey 6 years ago, and fast forward to today, we now have onboarded over 130 mentees in our region. We have onboarded over 110 mentors, and collectively those mentors have given several thousand hours of volunteer time to the mentees, providing guidance. They are non-conflicted, they're not paid, they're completely volunteer. And I'm excited for today's program because in partnership with Sylvester, Mobley, and Melanie at Coded by Kids and 1Philadelphia, we are really taking steps to go even further in the diversification of both our mentors and mentees with more underrepresented founders. Again, both mentees and mentors. As we onboard, many of you are in the program, we talk about how our mentors out of the gate were very white and very male. Our mentees were much more naturally diverse, both gender, race, even age. But this effort that you're going to hear about today is really about taking this program to the next level in how it serves, in particular, underrepresented founders. So with that, let me pass the baton to Sylvester Mobley, who not only leads Coded by Kids, but 1Philadelphia, also serves on the PACT board, and I think is uniquely positioned with his colleague Melanie and others to help PACT and Ben Franklin as we look to continue to grow the program.
Thanks, Dean. I really appreciate it. Very excited. The Mentor Connect program is an amazing program. So the ability to open it up and really have an intentional push around the diversity, equity, and inclusion within Mentor Connect is something that's exciting to me. As Dean touched on, the mentorship, the advice that founders get is critical to their success early on. So the more that we can do to push that out, the better it is for our founders, but also for the ecosystem. If our founders aren't successful, if underrepresented founders aren't successful, it's hard to make the case that the ecosystem is successful. So this is extremely important. So I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the panel tonight. So I'm going to kick it off with some questions. On the panel, we have Lee Jones, CEO of EREflow, and also a mentor, Mike Pearson, experienced CEO and a mentor, Tiffanie Stanard, CEO of Stimulus and a mentee, and Shannon Morales, founder of Tribaja. I want to start by giving each of you just 30 seconds to introduce yourselves and just tell us who you are. So I'm going to start with Lee.
Thanks very much. I am the CEO of EREflow, and that's a company that I just started last year. Prior to that, I was the CEO of a company called GSI Health, which I sold at the end of 2019. Been involved. I'm a native Philadelphian and started my companies here, and really excited to participate on this panel and see a flourishing of underrepresented entrepreneurs really become successful here.
Mike, I'm gonna move to you next.
First of all, good evening. I welcome the opportunity to share what I will call a lucky pathway, where I got a lot of help. I went through the complete ecosystem, startup to exit. So that's what I'm here to supply, a little knowledge on do some things I did so that you can get to that exit strategy a little faster.
So Mike, you did everything right the first time from beginning to end, right? That's what I'm gathering from this.
Absolutely not. And, that's the beauty of mentorship. You learn from our mistakes. And just like, and I'm a father and a grandfather, I want the next generation to get there quicker.
All good. Tiffanie?
I'm trying to get my voice to go that strong as his, but that's a problem. So, hi everyone, Tiffanie Stanard. I am the founder and CEO of Stimulus. We use data analytics to help companies make better purchasing decisions. I am a PACT mentee as well as a PACT board member and a board member of Philly Startup Leaders.
All good. Thank you, Tiff. Shannon?
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here. Just truly honored to be on this panel with a bunch of amazing professionals like yourselves. So I am the founder and CEO of Tribaja, your modern day work tribe. We're a digital talent marketplace and community for underrepresented tech and startup enthusiasts.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna jump in. Jumping in, I do wanna set some context. Everyone has a different view or a different opinion of what mentorship is. If you talk to 5 people, you may get 5 different answers. So I do just want to start out by, let's set some context and talk about what mentorship is. So I'm going to push this to Leroy and Tiff. In your opinion, how would you define mentorship?
Well, I think at its core, it's sort of what Dean was saying. You have someone who's trying to do something and someone who's done it, presumably, and you put them together so that one can benefit the other. I think that the trick comes in where there's a lot that needs to be orchestrated and come together in the right way for it to be effective. So you need to know what you need to know, and the person that you're trying to get to mentor you needs to have that information. But that person also needs to be able to offer to you the things that you don't know and know that you need to know them. And you need to make sure that there's a match of the expertise to the need. And that's why something like Mentor Connect is really important, because Mentor Connect essentially orchestrates those mentor sessions and pulls in teams and pulls in expertise so that your likelihood of having an effective mentorship is much, much higher, rather than you just choosing someone that you respect who may not be able to meet all the needs that you have.
Before I push it to Tiff, Lee, I just want to ask a quick question. Thinking about what you just said, and as someone who's going through the full life cycle of a company and getting to exit, do you feel like mentorship and what it means evolves over the life cycle of a founder?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you're, just like the company itself evolves and the company has different needs at different times, some of those needs you really can't acknowledge or appreciate until you're there. And so even though someone may be telling me about, for example, things I need to do to sell my company, when I'm really just trying to make payroll or other things, I may understand it and know it, but I don't appreciate it. And so the things that the mentee needs over time changes, and you may have to change the mix of your mentors in order to get all those needs fulfilled.
Thank you. Tiff, as a young 20-something.
20, oh, I wish.
You didn't say young to me, but anyway, I'm going to
As a early stage founder, how would you define mentorship?
So, one thing I've learned over many years and now having my third company, you have, your official mentors and you have unofficial mentors. So you have folks that you go to and you just solicit advice from, maybe, they were part of Accelerator or a program that you were in, and you just, once in a while kind of pick their brain, and you haven't really laid out a full agenda or a full, agreement of how you're going to work together, but you go to them for different things at different times. And then you have your official mentors where you really laid out, this is what I need help with, this is how often I need to speak to you. And also if you're able to give them anything in return, even though you may be their mentee, you say, hey, I'm also building this great company and I have great company customers that may be great customers for you, or partnerships and things of that nature. And I think that's one of the biggest things I liked about the mentor program at PACT. I have my unofficial, advisors and mentors, but then with the PACT membership, Jen, making sure you put that agenda together before you speak to your team so you can identify everything that you need to speak to them in a timely manner, and then anything that they need to follow up with you on and things of that nature. So I think having both is important, because some you just need to vent to, you need to have, unofficial conversations with. And then the other side of mentor structuring out, saying, hey, I'm working on these 3 things. Can you help, or refer someone that can help, and making sure that it's a follow-up afterwards. And if they can turn into, potential partners or customers for you as well, because one of our mentors became a customer, another mentor became introduction to an investor that's currently invested in our company. So the relationship normally expands once you have that structured understanding of what you both need.
So it's interesting you talk about the structure with Mentor Connect. How important has that structure been to you in terms of just the success and the value you've gotten out of the program?
Yeah, that's been really important, because it's kind of like a mini board meeting because you're saying, hey, this is what I'm working on. Here's our, updated financials, if that's something you need help with. Here's 3 people I need to speak to. And I kind of close it out. Hey, these are the next steps, and this is going to happen between now and our next meeting. So it really is kind of preparing for other advisory board meetings I have, or official board meetings that I will have in the future, to say, hey, I'm coming to you with the, problem, and, I need to understand potential solutions, and just being able to, for them to look at it and for me to look at it written out versus just in my head. So that really helps as well.
Right. So the next question I have, I'm going to throw this to Mike and Shannon. What have you seen that has made a good mentor-mentee relationship, and vice versa? What things have you seen that have resulted in negative or not productive mentor-mentee relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, what's been really amazing about mentor relationships is if someone is willing to share their skills, their knowledge, their expertise that they spent years obtaining. It's super valuable for me as I'm trying to obviously get to where they are today. And in terms of a bad relationship, I think it's either unauthentic connections, somebody who doesn't necessarily want to be there, or doesn't put in the time commitment, doesn't put in the energy. At the end of the day, we're both here. We should both be here because we want to be here, and not because anyone is forced. So I think just having a truly organic mentor relationship, obviously that's built on reciprocity and just wanting to support one another, is obviously where that value is for mentorship.
That's good. Are there strategies or techniques that you found to really find that organic mentor-mentee relationship?
I think what I try to look for is professionals who have, I guess, who have similar circumstances that I have. So I'm a single mom. And so my first mentor was a single mom who was killing it as an entrepreneur. And so my question to her was always, how do you juggle being a mom, being a great parent, and also being an entrepreneur? And she was just like, every day I just go out and hustle. I hustle because, I'm trying to build this legacy for my family, and because I don't want, to fail. And that was just real advice. And I think when you can just be truly open with someone, that makes the best, mentor relationship.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mike?
Well, I'll take it in this direction. I'm one of 6 kids, and I was the youngest. So my siblings were my mentors. And then I was in the military, and then I was told who my mentors were. So the worst mentor relationship are those you cannot change. And the beauty of this program, as it's engineered, is you have the ability, when a relationship is not working for either party, there's reciprocity in the ability to find the appropriate source of mentorship. And that's an element, that's a blatant plug for the design of the program. And some folks much smarter than myself at MIT had thought out, and Dean, the other mentors carry out in essence for the mentees. And the other element that could be really toxic is the refusal to listen by both parties. Listening is a skill set. The most successful entrepreneurs and the most successful mentors I know are those that are able to listen and process what is useful for them. And that's a key to having a successful engagement.
Mike, can you just talk a little bit more about the reciprocity that you mentioned within Mentor Connect? Just how to
absolutely. For instance, this is a defect of the Philadelphia community, and Dean and Jen are part of and William Penn are part of the solution. If you are in San Francisco, Austin, Boston, and you're 21 years old, you walk into the room with a bunch of folks with cash, and in Philadelphia, they look at you like you're crazy. So part of it is creating an ecosystem where we bridge the gap between experience and age and allow that to be accessed in a way that I listen to the people who are starting out and they listen to me. So if I could encapsulate a brief synopsis of what reciprocity is, that is the best example. And I'm better at it in business because clearly it didn't work in my personal life.
And Mike, no one holds being in the Army against you. I want you to know that.
No Navy beat Army.
So a lot of people are eager, in need of mentorship, they're in need of advice, but not all mentorship and advice comes from solid experience. I think all of us who have been in the space for a while have seen it happen. We've been a part of it happening. How important is it to vet your mentor or mentee for that matter? So I'm going to throw this to Leroy. You want to kick us off?
Sure. So I think that it's very important to vet your mentor and mentee. And I think that one of the aspects of Mentor Connect is that does happen. On the mentor side, we get presented with the various candidate mentees, and what we hear about them is what they're doing and what they feel they need in a mentor team. And then you have, dozens and dozens of mentors who are evaluating that, and they are opting in, saying, I have something that can meet the need that's being requested. I have something that contributes to that area that they're in. I want to be on a team. But it's not just the first hand that's raised, it's a team of people, so who are bringing various things. And so I think that Mentor Connect helps to do that vetting and to compile a roster of people that can be helpful to the mentee. And the mentees, likewise, as Michael was saying, has ability to vet that team and say, the first three are good, that Lee Jones guy, get him off and bring somebody else on. So I think that, both of those are important, and I found them to be effective in this program.
Lee, when you're vetting a mentee, what are you looking at? What types of things do you look at to decide whether or not you think that would be a good relationship?
In the Mentor Connect context, there are usually, there are some intangibles, but there are three things that I usually look at off the top. One is what they're doing in the domain where I have expertise. So I was a software as a service company in the healthcare space. And to the extent that I can bring some of my expertise to people who are trying to do something similar, I look at that. Secondly, I look at what kinds of problems the mentee feels that they're facing, what stage of the business they're at, whether they need go-to-market help or technology help or other kinds of things. And then I sort of compare that to what I have to offer. And then thirdly, I look at who the mentee is. And if I think that my presence and my particular experience or story, whether it's because we have commonalities of being from this area, or we're both, Black, or we are, started companies of similar age, whatever the demographic and makeup of the mentee is, if I think there's a connection I can bring, then that helps me to choose to be on their team.
Thank you. Mike, how important do you think it is to do that early mentor-mentee vetting?
I think it's very important if you're going to have a relaxed environment. We are most candid when we trust. We are most candid when we are relaxed. So the first thing you want to establish is a rapport. And again, sometimes, and here's the beauty of having a big room, whether it's Tony, Dean, or Jen, they can feel out the essence of the mentee in that pre-screening process, and they can take some guesses. You know what? You may work well with Lee because he's articulate and good looking. Mike's ugly and gruff, so I don't know if that's going to go. So that type of determination is where a group of folks can really help you out. And then there are other folks. We have an organic community. So a certain person who's a member of this discussion, I can't describe him because I haven't asked for his permission, but he's a Black guy, no hair, and his name is Bruce. Now, I invested in his business, and it was nice that we could have a discussion. And when he was presenting to the mentors, I could sit down and go, oh, I know this guy. He's 100% genuine. Get behind him. I like him. And this is the type of environment that's presented. And we hope to create organically this ecosystem of the exchange of information where in that group, you can find someone, you can find a frog to kiss, and it actually turn into a princess or prince. That's the goal.
When you're evaluating a mentee, a potential mentee, what types of things are you looking for?
Fire in the belly. That doesn't speak to technical competence, knowledge. It speaks to are you hungry? And if I can identify that, we're going to hit it off. And thanks to an open group looking at diverse differences, I also want to, sometimes we're more comfortable. I've been that only Black person in the room, and I'm just looking for someone. Are you from the same neighborhood? Do you listen to the same music? I need something to make me feel comfortable. Now at this advanced age, I don't give a damn. But early on, that was a driver.
I just want to say Bruce is also my hair care mentor. Tiff, I'm going to push that to you next. Same question. How important is it to vet a mentor-mentee?
So important. I think one thing I've learned of, being a Black woman in tech, there's no shortage of people trying to give you advice. Whether it's good advice or not is what you have to determine for yourself. And, you know, to Shannon's point earlier, like you want some mentors that have the experience to understand that how you have to come into this world and pitch in front of people after just dealing with taking care of your family and things of that nature is different than what they may have to have dealt with. So you need folks that you can get that real understanding from on how to balance both. And then you want people that actually have experience with your industry, not just tech, but your actual industry. If you're focused on a niche or certain types of things that you're selling to certain people, and having that understanding. So even to Mike's point earlier of understanding, like, yes, you want to hear everyone, but then determine what advice actually makes sense. And you have a lot of folks, you know, especially, you know, investors that will give you advice and never have ran a business in their life, right? So then you got to determine if you want to listen to them based upon them just saying because they saw so many businesses, right? But not they created so many businesses. So you really have to find the balance of seeing who is missing from your current mentor group that you need that advice from, and kind of separate it that way. Like, are you great with finance? Are you great with my industry? Are you great just because you're a Black businessman and we can relate just because of our background? Like, having those different pools of people are really important, because some days you just need to vent to your mentor. It may not even be business related, and you want that feedback across the board, and understand that everybody's advice is not important.
So you kind of touched on this in your answer, but I'm going to dig into this. How do you assess a potential mentor?
I think Mike said earlier, Shannon, like being relaxed, having that conversation with them, the type of interaction you have with them outside of that initial setup mentor meeting. Like the 3, you know, males that I have now, which I wasn't sure when I first had the first meeting, I was like, how is this going to go? But they've been amazing. And they, you know, outside of our bi-monthly meetings, they text me and check up on me and say, hey, I'm just checking, are you good? You need anything? And those are the type of mentors that you feel relaxed to say, no, I'm not good. Can we jump on a call for a few minutes? Or they'll text me and you know, how was your vacation? Like those turn into a little bit expanded, you know, relationship. And, you know, those are the folks that I'll feel comfortable talking finance to things that are happening at home with you, because you need both. You can't just always be on as a professional if you're dealing with something personal.
And as we all know, personal never affects professional for founders, right?
Exactly.
Shannon, I'm going to push the same thing to you. How important do you think it is to vet that mentor-mentee relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I come from a different perspective because I've always been extremely afraid to ask for help and support. And so I very often found myself stumbling upon informal like mentors and things like that. But right now, where I'm at in my entrepreneurial journey, I know like most definitely I need someone to kind of stand in my corner and help guide me. And so the way that I would think about, you know, just vetting a mentor is similar to how I would vet a company that I was going to eventually work for, or a job or something like that. Like, does this person, you know, have all of those things that, you know, are checking those boxes for me? You know, have they raised capital before? You know, have they, you know, had a successful, you know, company? And, you know, just all of those things that I eventually want to do in my life. I need to make sure that the person that I'm relying on for, you know, all of these great tips and information, that they're going to steer me in the right direction and not down the wrong path. Because we all know as a founder, as an entrepreneur, you know, time wasted is money lost. And, you know, we don't want to go down that road.
That's an interesting point. So I'm going to ask a question to all of you, and anyone can jump in. What are some red flags that's just that signal, hey, this may not be a good mentor-mentee relationship?
For me, I would say, and this is not something you can really determine necessarily prior to, but after meeting with the mentee, if they're, it's okay to not really know how to take best advantage, but if they're, as Mike was saying, not listening to what you're saying or trying to synthesize it, then that's sort of red flag. Also, you know, not having any idea of what they want. So it may not be that they can accurately pinpoint everything that they really need out of a relationship, but if they don't have any concept and they're just sort of coming in and saying, I'm here, then that doesn't show to me, you know, enough initiative to try to organize and get out of this what you need. So that's a red flag for me.
Yeah, I would say in a past mentor relationship, I've had a guy that was a mentor that would get upset every time I went and listened to his advice. And I'm like, it didn't fit the situation, you know, like how to do this type of marketing or how to do, you know, reach out to this type of investor. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do it that way. And every time we would have a conversation, he'd be like, if I'm your mentor, then you just don't listen to me. And I'm like, you're not my partner. Like you're like, we're not in a relationship for me to listen to you in that way. So I think, you know, a mentor is supposed to guide you and is supposed to give you advice, but you're supposed to take for that, you know, for your own situation and make it your own. Because even if I took your advice directly, you know, step by step, would I have the same outcome? That's up in the air, you know what I mean? Because your experience and my experience will always be different. So making sure that the person that you're working with understands that I'm going to take little bits and pieces from this. I may not do it exactly the same way, but I am listening to you, but I'm not going to listen to everything that you say because this is still my company and you're here to help, not, you know, direct. So.
I like that.
Can I just add one thing to that? And I think that this is a strength of Mentor Connect as well. Because you have a panel of mentors, it's not all or nothing, right? If you have that experience with one person and that's your only mentor, then you're kind of, you know, caught out there. But not only do you have a choice, but the mentors can police each other so that you see that someone is really being dogmatic on a point or something, someone else can step in and not leave that to the mentee who may, you know, not be in the same position to really challenge what's being said and that sort of thing.
Tiffanie and Lee are spot on. And I will add something else, which, yeah, I'm jovial, a joke, but there are serious points to having that panel. Protection. I'm not a woman, but I need to empathize where women can be subjugated to men exhibiting bad behavior. 3 people there puts you on your toes and you act right. And then there are times we have microaggressions. I know that's a popular word, but what does that mean to Black people sometimes? It's good to have another set of ears that to do the, did he say that? Did she say that? And I think it's important to have those filters where you can be checked. And back to that safety, as Lee alluded to, having more folks in the room keeps people on their best behavior.
Can I just jump in? I was, you know, thanks, Michael, for bringing that up, because that is definitely one of the major reasons why I definitely struggle to, or was apprehensive of, you know, finding mentors, is because as women, you know, sometimes a mentor or, you know, quote unquote, someone who's trying to mentor you, their intentions may not be, you know, genuine and authentic, and breakfast turns to lunch, lunch turns to dinner, and then whatever else, right? So I'm all about my business, and I'm all about, you know, staying clear about, you know, what I'm here for and what, you know, this mentor relationship is, what it's supposed to do in terms of benefits. And sometimes I think when people get a little bit too relaxed, they kind of let their hair down, and it's no longer about the business. It's no longer about the goals, but it's about their personal intentions. And I'm not having that. So thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think it definitely resonates with women. And, you know, I think people just need to know that.
Yeah, I want to add to that because that is so important. Like we can't, you know, we had different advisors, especially that are males, and you just can't go happy hour with them or, you know, a beer with them. Like it literally has to be a structured, you know, breakfast or lunch. And even that, depending, could be taken out of context. You know what I mean? So we have to think harder about how we engage with them and outside of the office types of ways if we decide to do that, because on our end it could look bad, on their end it could look bad. So in men, when they're mentoring each other, you don't have to think about that, but unfortunately we do. And it could be, like she said, misunderstood, and then it could go real left after that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So what are some of the challenges people have with finding mentors, and how does Mentor Connect help with addressing those challenges that people traditionally have with finding mentors? So I'm going to throw that out to any of you that wants to jump in and answer that.
Well,
Yeah, I guess.
Go ahead.
Sure, I guess I can, start, but I think the challenge is always having that access to a network of professionals that, are successful, especially if you come from an underrepresented background or marginalized groups. It's a struggle across the board. When I was transitioning into tech, I knew no one, in my family or close network who was even in technology. And it's even worse, as I started to become an entrepreneur. Now it's like, okay, now who in my network is an entrepreneur? And the pool of, people that you can access and tap into for advice gets smaller and smaller. And so having a place that you can go where it's like, here you go, you have all of these great professionals who are vetted and are obviously very successful and experienced, then that's just super valuable. So, yep.
Also, frequently, as you progress in life and your station in life becomes more comfortable, you may not be engaged in your community. And fortunately, I have forces that can pull you back in and create the need. The people who are running Mentor Connect can apply that social pressure to get people engaged. And sometimes that's what is needed, a boost to say, hey, some folks need your help. And they make it easy so that you don't have to struggle for both sides on where do we find these people. So part of what I think is important is the messaging. If I have a friend who's been a successful entrepreneur, hey, what are you doing? Did you hear about? And then when I had some folks I know that were jumping into the startup mode, I point them in the direction of Mentor Connect. And it's an unbiased third party in some respects, because they can say the things I can't say as a friend. When you go, hey, you really need to do this. So there are different forms of mentoring. Some people you help their spirit, some people you help their balance sheet.
Yeah, I think that I remember when I was starting out and went to the mentoring program. I don't even remember who ran it at the time, but it was a bunch of retired executives who volunteered their time. And I remember I went into the room and this guy was in there and he was, at least 40 years older than me. And I was talking about building a technology business and he didn't understand things that I was talking about. And he was asking me questions that I couldn't really relate to, and he didn't explain why. And I remember, the people that I found as mentors were very limited. So the fact that you have a pool of people to select from and a clearinghouse to go and find them is important. But, on a personal level, what that experience taught me was I need to if I want others to be able to exceed what I've done, and I want to be a part of that story, then it's my responsibility to make myself visible by doing things like this and doing other things that people know I'm there, because half the time it's, Michael, I just met him over the last couple of years, but he's been a force, right? And so why didn't I know him? Why don't people know me? And part of our responsibility, I think, as mentors is to try to be very visible so that others can see us and say, you know what, Whether he's just a role model from afar or becomes a mentor up close, there's somebody there that I can go to.
Yeah, to your point, Leroy, one thing I loved about Mentor Connect is as small as Philly feels, and as much as we think we know everyone, we do not, right? So was introduced to people that I either have heard of, but never met, or never heard of ever. And I think to your point of, these people you should know about, or maybe they just were quiet and building and sold, and now they're, giving back, or maybe they've been loudly building, but they didn't feel accessible enough to get a quick introduction or for you to reach out to them directly. So I feel like Mentor Connect has been a mixture of that, right? People that you've seen from afar but couldn't connect to, or people you just never knew was around that has done amazing things. And as small and large as Philly feels, sometimes you need that connection of knowing who can really help you, or even who you can give advice to as well.
Mike and Lee, from listening to your responses, it sounds like there's a strong social component that has driven the two of you to be mentors and be a part of Mentor Connect. Is that a correct assessment?
Well, how can I not have a social component? I'm from the other side of the tracks. My father worked at a shipyard. I stumbled into the University of Pennsylvania. I stumbled into these other things. I'm a product of public school. Now I've hit that magic 1 or 2%. And that doesn't come from my efforts. That comes from, there were white and Black mentors that cut me in, allowed me to get a slice of the pie. And if I don't pay that forward, I think the karma boomerang is going to knock the hell out of me. And I'll be sitting down there with Adolf Hitler and a couple other folks in hell.
Okay, Michael. All right. Well, I'm I too am trying to avoid going to hell. I think I'm doing okay on that part, but paying it forward, is personal to me for a number of reasons. One is I definitely believe that everyone should, help out where they have the most ability to help out. And so if I'm most impactful in a certain community, then I should help that community. Secondly, I remember when I was young and I was blessed to sort of do well in school, and I went through Philly public schools, and they had this program called, it started as academically talented, and then they called it mentally gifted, and they pulled you out of all the other classes. So we're like, you're in a class of 30 people and they pull you into a class of like 2, and they teach you how to play chess and backgammon and things like that. And it wasn't until I was older that I said, what does that say to the 28 people, the 27 people who are still in the other room? They could succeed. And so I always felt that no matter whatever kind of exclusive club I make it into, I want to go back and bring other people into that club. And so that's really what drives me to try to do things like what I do in Mentor Connect.
Thank you. How important is it, and this is something else I'll kind of leave to all of you to answer, how important is it to maintain the connections you make as you're building connections with mentors along the way? And one of the things we talked about earlier was sometimes those relationships evolve, and the mentor that you need today may not be the mentor that you need tomorrow. But even as you're evolving as a founder, your company is moving forward, how important is it to maintain those connections and relationships with the mentors?
Well, I'll argue that this is not just a mentor-mentee skill set. It is a general skill set, especially in a Philadelphia microcosm of business. You burn bridges too frequently, and sooner or later you're engaged with those people again. But if you've approached business from an ethical standpoint, I can help myself or I can help someone else by leaning on relationships. much of what we do is being able to pick up your phone and call someone and go, hey, I have someone that needs some help. Can you talk to them? And Tiffanie, I know what she's doing software wise. I just realized there was a connection for her as a potential customer. So I just sent her a private message. Hey, there's something I need to link you with. It is that informal, and having the goodwill or the karma built up to engage people is so important in business.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I want to say that I've been really bad with like just in general, like follow-ups and things like that. But what I've heard from my friends is that what they like about, our friendship is that it's not about quantity, it's really about the quality of our interactions. So if you are reaching out and keeping those connections warm, it's about, what are you asking, and it doesn't always have to be asking for something. Sometimes you can really just check on a person and then make someone feel good, about the fact that they're still connected or in the loop with you. And like Michael said, if there's a situation where, hey, I came across, this great opportunity, and I know exactly the person who I should reach out to. Those things are, I mean, that's what it's all about, in terms of networking.
Yeah, I would say I've definitely learned over the last decade now the importance of maintaining those relationships for the opportunity of expanding to something else. Because you never know, when you would go into business with them or become a customer, an investor, a partner, or whatever it may be. So it took me a while, until these, the last decade of understanding, making sure the relationship is mutually beneficial, right? Not just calling them when you need something and figuring out ways to interact with them quarterly or yearly. So I've been really great with that over, especially since starting this business, because, that's why we call our company Relationship Intelligence, because we've learned how to create business by maintaining and expanding those relationships. So it's just always making sure that if you're reaching out to someone, you have something to offer as much as you're asking. And then I think that's how the relationship expands, because if every time you reach out to that one person, you're asking, they may not answer, as often as you want them to, but you say, hey, I have a potential customer, or hey, I have a potential opportunity for you. Let's link up. And then you're able to say, if you do need something from them, or maybe you just don't need something at that time, but you're offering. So I've learned how to kind of expand our relationships that way.
Thank you.
I would say one thing that maybe is a little bit different than what was said, which is one of the things that I think is a good aspect of Mentor Connect is that there is some distance between the mentee and the mentor, so that if there's a closeness that would evolve, it's sort of by choice and deliberate, as opposed to when you find a mentor on your own, it's probably someone you know from some context. And like, for example, I have a cousin who asked me about some business stuff once, and I gave them my view. Well, they didn't follow up on that or whatever. So now at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, I see them, and then it's awkward. Like, do they want to come over and say anything? Do you have to formally say, look, I'm not listening to that. It didn't fit as was said earlier, And so I like the fact that if we're going to get closer and we're going to, have these extended relationship, again, around business, et cetera, it's deliberate, and you have an opportunity to not go there if you don't choose to.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to look to Jen now, because we're running up on time. I really appreciate your answers. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate all of your time. Thank you. Definitely a lot of insight. I hope that the people who are also on this found value in your insight into mentorship and what they can take away from this. And definitely please get engaged with Mentor Connect. It is an amazing program. There's people on here now who I can see on my screen who are a part of Mentor Connect. Tiff is a part of Mentor Connect. I think Tiff would agree it's an amazing program. So please, if you are a founder, get involved. Avoid Mike. You probably don't want him, but please get involved. And Mike, Lee, Lee, I don't know as well. We're just meeting each other, but I know Mike. Mentor Connect does an amazing job with pulling in high quality people that are passionate about the ecosystem and passionate about the founders that they work with. So I definitely encourage everyone to get involved.
I just want to add one thing. First of all, the connections, Dean, Tony, and Jen are first class. They truly embody and embrace the mission. And that frequently, you need people to care about what they're doing. And I want to take my hat off to them. And I also want to take my hat off to Bruce, Tiffanie, our young entrepreneurs of color that I know and what they're doing in the community. And I respect them and encourage them to keep doing it.
Mike, thanks for the kind words, and Lee and Sylvester. And Jen just posted her email address. We talk about this program. It's a collaborative program between PACT and Ben Franklin, serving the whole community. Jen is what makes it tick. She is the program director, and she just posted her email. If you're interested in learning more about Mentor Connect and getting involved, either as a mentor or as a mentee to get a mentor team, please email Jen. You can also find it at mentorconnectphl.com. We have a separate website. And of course, there's links off of each of the Ben Franklin and PACT's websites to the program as well.
And
Also,
on behalf of, go ahead, Dean.
I just also want to note, as Mike and Lee know, we gather our mentors on a monthly basis. That's tomorrow morning from 8:30 to 10. But we have a ton of mentors actually even participating here tonight, and just grateful. The dedication of both mentors and mentees in the program is, and you see it in a lot of the chat comments. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah. And if I can, just again, thanks to everybody on the call. Mike, thanks for the shout out from Ben Franklin's end and also from PACT. This has been a real important, but it's been a fun experience gathering everybody, seeing the commitment, knowing that this is a volunteer organization. People are in the program as long as they're deriving value from the program, and we take that obligation very seriously. And we appreciate the input and the commitment of this community, because that's how this region is going to thrive in the next generation of entrepreneurship. We're going to build it organically with people like you.
And to be really clear, our intention of growing this again on an inclusive basis with more and more underrepresented founders, specifically on the mentee side, we are eliminating any barriers to access this program. The barrier for a mentee today is you need to be a PACT member or a Ben Franklin portfolio company. We're eliminating that for underrepresented founders specifically.